It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today I wanted to talk about Lemmy. Now, if you've listened to any of my other videos, you'll know that I really like Reddit. And the reason I like it is that you follow communities. You don't really follow people. And the thing about communities is they tend to have the same topics, or they're made intentionally to have the same topics, so you get information that you're interested in. Whereas when you follow people, you kind of get whatever their whim is a lot of times. So for me, I really like that idea, and I've been looking for something for my day job where I could use something like Reddit, where a person, a user from my software company, follows a community of the software that they're using, and they can put in ideas and have those ideas voted up and down by other users, and other users can put in color on those ideas to help me as a product manager set my roadmap and priorities. And I think Lemmy might just be the tool that I want to use. So I've been trying it out, and I thought you guys might enjoy it as well. It's a federated version of Reddit, so you can run your own server and federate with other servers. You can run it standalone, kind of however you want to do that. So we're going to go through the installation here, and we'll really kind of get into some of the pitfalls that I ran into, and we'll talk about how this is really not that hard. It's going to take about 10-15 minutes at the most, and you'll have Lemmy up and running. So stick with me, and we'll get into it right after this. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really, truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. As always, I want to talk about how you can support the project for Lemmy. So if you enjoy the Lemmy software, if you enjoy the project, if you want it to continue, then definitely think about getting over there to support them. You can support them through LibrePay, through Patreon, or through the Open Collective. And then they have a list of supporters or sponsors here as well, which is really great. So you could make that list and just let everybody know that you're willing to support open source, which is the reason that open source continues is because we support it. So please get out there and do that if you have the ability to do that. To get started, we're going to use Docker and Docker Compose to install Lemmy. So if you don't have Docker and Docker Compose installed, I have a script, and I'll link to the video in the show notes in the description, but I'll also have a section in the show notes on how to use that script to install Docker and Docker Compose and NGinX Proxy Manager in this case, because we'll want a reverse proxy so we can set up a subdomain and get that through our home network and still be able to access our Lemmy site from outside the home network as well. So the first thing I like to do is I like to create a Docker folder to keep all of my Docker stuff in. So if I do an ls, you can see a few of the things that I have in here. Some of these things I'm working for future videos. Some of these things I've done in the past for you guys. But I want to make a new directory here called Lemmy. And then I'm going to cd into that directory. And then we're going to do a couple of wget commands to kind of get things ready and set up. And what I've got is I've got my show notes already typed up so that you guys can just kind of follow them and follow along. And what you'll see is I have a what you need section. And then I have the section on installing Docker CE and Docker Compose, which you're also going to want. And it talks about how to get NGinX Proxy Manager in that same script. It's very easy. It's a run once script kind of thing that installs what you need. Then I get down to the Lemmy section and I tell you how to create this folder structure, which is again very straightforward. And then I'm going to tell you there's a couple of wget commands. So you'll want wget installed, and I even tell you how to install that on various Linux distributions. So I'm just going to copy that command. I'm going to paste it into my terminal. It'll copy down what we need for Docker Compose. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to copy this command for a configuration file that we need. And again, I'm going to paste that back into my terminal. It'll pull that down as well. And if we clear this out and do a ls real quick here, you can see I've got the Docker Compose and the lemmy.hjson file in my Lemmy folder now. So the next thing we need to do is make a directory. We're going to make a directory to hold our pictures. And again, we're just going to use this command right here. It's very straightforward. We can just copy it, bring it over and paste it into the terminal here. And we've got that folder now. So if we do an ls, you'll see there's the volumes folder. And then we've got to change the ownership of that folder. So again, I've got that command right here in the show notes. So I'll just copy it and I'll paste that in. Now this is going to prompt you for your super user password, but it's done. There we go. So we can clear that out. And as you continue down in the show notes, I've got a little bit of information on things you'll probably want to change inside of these files. So we're going to jump into the Docker Compose file, and then we'll jump over to the lemmy.hjson file. So if you use the Nano text editor, that's my favorite. It's easy to use. It's easy to install if it's not already installed. And for me, it's just what I know. So that's what I use. If you like VI, Vim, Emacs, feel free to use whatever text editor you want to use. But I'm going to nano docker compose.yaml. And as we go through, so there's a Postgres password here. So I'm going to change this to my name. And I'm going to change this to something else. You want to make this a strong password. So I'm going to use mypass01. Now you should make it stronger than that. But for our testing purposes, you understand what I'm doing. The DB we'll leave it named Lemmy, and then we don't need to make any other changes there. Next, we're going to move down to this section that says Lemmy, and we're going to start here with this port, left port number. We're going to remove the IP address in front of it. And the same thing on this next line. We're just going to remove the IP address because that binds these ports to the local host only, which means they're assuming that you're accessing this system only from your local machine, which is a bad assumption in my opinion. So we're going to go ahead and do this. And if you're using NGinX Proxy Manager on the same host, you could leave that technically, but I'm going to take it out because I'm going to be accessing it from the IP address and using my reverse proxy to get to the IP address of my host machine. So I want you to kind of see that this is something you may have to change. From there, everything else again stays the same. We're just going to move on down to the next section here that says Lemmy UI. And again, we're going to remove this IP address and that first colon so that we just have the port, and it's forwarding port 1235 to port 1234. So if port 1235 on your host machine is already in use for some reason, you should change this number. You could just add a 0 to it, whatever. Just remember what you change it to. You'll need that later on. And then down here we've got a few variables that we need to set, some environment variables. So this one I just leave the same, that says Lemmy :8536. This one down here, I take out localhost because again, I'm not going to use localhost, and I put in the IP address of my host machine, which is 192.168.10.42. And then this part that says HTTPS is set to true. I'm going to change this to false here, but we're going to set up HTTPS through our reverse proxy later. So we can continue down, and you've got this PICTRS section. We're going to leave everything here alone. There's nothing there for us to change. And then I'm going to take out that last line there. I'm just going to hit Control-O to save. I'm going to double check everything I've got, make sure I don't have anything missing or out of place. It looks okay to me. And then I'm going to use Control-X to exit the Nano editor. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to edit our lemmy.hjson file. And again, in here, there's a few things we need to adjust. So our admin username, we probably don't want that to be Lemmy. So you can make that admin, you can make it your name, whatever you want it to be. And again, we don't want this to be the password. This is the default. We don't want that. So we're going to make this a better password. Okay, something long, something strong, something that people probably wouldn't guess. Now this is just a test system, so it's going to get taken away later. The next thing is what you want the site name to be. So this is what's going to show up in the top left of your Lemmy site. So you probably want to kind of think about what that's going to be. But for us, we'll do open source is awesome. Lemmy, something like that. You can make it whatever you want. You can make it your business name, anything. This next line we're going to leave alone. We're going to move down, and then this thing that says mydomain.nl. So this is where you want your host name to be. So whatever you're going to reverse proxy to this thing is what you want to set. So I'm going to set lemmy.routemehome.org. Now I own the domain routemehome.org. So I'm going to create a subdomain of Lemmy, and I'm going to make sure that that's pointing to my home IP address. So I create an A record in my DNS setup at my domain registrar. I create an A record, and I say here, I want this subdomain Lemmy to point to my home IP address. And when I do that, when I type in lemmy.routemehome.org, it's going to send me to my home public IP address, and then I've got a port forward through my router to port 80 and 443 over to the machine I run NGinX Proxy Manager on. And then NGinX Proxy Manager gets that request and sends it forward to the machine that's running Lemmy. And then it presents that back to the user who requested it. On the bind, we'll leave that 0000, and on the port, we're going to leave that as 8536. Again, I don't change anything here on the pictures config. This API key, you're actually supposed to change this to be an actual API key, so don't just leave this here. You can make this a long string of numbers and letters. Just make sure it's not got a bunch of weird characters that API keys may not want, but make sure that you do set that as an API key. Don't just leave it as API key. I'll change that here in a minute when I save, and then we'll start the system up. The next thing you want to have is the database name is Lemmy. That's correct. Your user is going to be Brian. That's what I set on my other one. And then the password that I set for that database was my pass01. Now, again, you should use a strong password. Don't just follow my example. Make this something that's going to be secure for your purposes. Postgres is correct, this is correct, and this is correct. So as we move down, we're going to look here, and it's got a few things. So it's got some stuff to try to take out slang words that are derogatory to people. So I'd leave this line alone unless you really know what you're doing with regular expressions. I would not change this. Now we're going to get to the email part. Now this is important. If you're going to set up email, you need to know what your email setup is going to be, and you need to set it correctly. And there's a couple of things we need to add that are missing from this file that I found when I was setting it up. So we're going to move the hashtag from every other line here, starting at the email line. And I'm going to take it out because that comments out the line, but I need it so I can set it up. And then we actually need to take out this last one right here, and then we need to do a return. And we need to come up and add an extra line with a comment in it. And this is going to be SSL type, or TLS type actually. It's required if you're going to leave TLS as true. And we're going to do TLS underscore type colon. Make sure I get my spacing right here. And then we're going to set that to quote start TLS for me. That's what my email server uses, is start TLS. If yours uses regular TLS, just put TLS. And if it uses no TLS at all, then make sure that this is set to false and this is set to none. And then you'll be set. So up here on my server, I need to put in my SMTP server address. And here, my login for my SMTP server. And then this will be my password. So I'll come back and fill that in a minute, but I need to use my actual email password. And then my from address, I always just use the same one as my login address. You can use different ones if you want to, if your email server supports that. So I'm going to fill in this last email address. We're just going to save with Control O, and then we'll exit with Control X, and we're pretty much ready to run our Docker Compose up command. Let me grab that password and I'll be right back. Okay, now we're ready to run our Docker Compose command to bring up our containers, to pull down the images and bring up our containers. We're going to do Docker Compose up-d, and then I like to do ampersand Docker Compose logs-f, because I can see the logs after this brings up our containers and runs them in the background as a daemon. Then it's going to show us the logs as they're coming in, so we can kind of see if there's any errors with the system. All right, when we're done putting that in, we're just going to hit enter. It's going to go out and pull down all of the images that we need for the containers. It'll take just a minute, so be patient. It depends on your internet speed and your computer power capabilities, so be patient as this runs. All right, so it looks like everything's up and ready. We've got this thing that says starting the HTTP server, and it tells us that it's at that address, but we actually need to go to a different address. So we're just going to open up the browser. We'll open up a new tab. We'll go to 192.168.10.42. You, of course, want to go to your own IP address, and then we're going to go to 1235 for the port. And here's our new Lemmy site. We're up and running. Now remember, you created an admin user and an admin password in the HJSON file. So you want to use those to log in, and then you can go through and start setting up settings and things like that. But you can also create a separate user that's separate from your admin user if you want to, and use that user to log in normally. So I'm going to go to login, and I created my user, and it was, just going to paste it in. There we go. So now we're logged in, and we've got access to our settings, we've got access to our profile settings, everything like that. So you can click here, you can go to settings right here, and you can set up a username. And then you can put in a bio for yourself, put in your email if you want to. And then you can go down and continue adding things to your bio, and then hit save. Now if you get this little error, it's telling you, hey, I couldn't do something with the email that I needed to do. So one thing that I forgot to show you, so we'll fix that problem. So we're going to go back, we're going to fix this HJSON file. So I'm going to show you what I did. Nano lemmy.hjson. We're going to scroll all the way down to the email settings. And the one thing I forgot is that, and this is what I did the first time I ran it, it says and port. So pay attention to that, because I did not put my port number right here. So I'm going to put colon 587. I'm going to hit Control O to save, Control X to exit. I'm going to do Docker Compose down. So I'm going to bring everything down, and then I'm going to bring it back up, so that when it comes up, it'll grab that change to that HJSON file. That's important to do to make sure everything's functioning correctly. So we'll just wait for a second while it brings it down. All right, it came right back up, and it says that it's already ready and listening. So this time it tells us it's listening even on that right thing. Now it says no JWT cookie found. I didn't see a place to put a JWT cookie, but maybe it didn't create the JWT cookie yet, and because I brought it down maybe too. So we're going to go back up here. We're just going to take out the settings section here. We'll just leave the port number. We'll go back into it. We're still logged in. So we can go right here, go back to settings. We can try to set this again. And then we can jump. They tab you through every control, so that's kind of annoying. Put in our email address. Again, make any changes you want to make. And then click on save. And this time you can see it spinning. There's no error. It came back. It's got everything in there, so that worked. So we fixed our issues with our email. You can even see that I got an email just now from the site. So my email is functioning correctly, so that's a really good thing. If you're seeing this little 465 orange error that pops up over here or any other errors, I found that generally it's related to the email part that you're really kind of dealing with. Once you've got that, you can go in here and start creating communities. You can look at the communities that you have, which right now there's a default community. And then you can create posts, of course. So when you go in to create a community, you give it a name, give it a description, a little bit of information, save it, and then you can start adding posts into that community, just like on Reddit. And as other people sign up, they get a lot of the same controls. So I'm going to show you the other one that I've set up real quick, and then we'll go set up a reverse proxy for the one we just installed. So this is the one I set up before when I was doing some practice stuff, and you can see here I set up just a fun page for self-promote. Basically, if you've got something awesome you want to tell people about, jump in here and do it. So when you click in, you can add things to this thread. Basically, if you check out the communities, you've got self-hosted, and you can check out things for self-hosted open source projects, open fund software, things like that. So it really is just like Reddit. People can vote it up, they can vote it down. It's very simple to kind of see, like, how does this function. You can add comments and those things get added as a thread. So here is my comment. This is great. And then I can hit post. And you see it shows up just like in Reddit. So I really like this. I think it's a great piece of software. I'm excited to put this to use. I hope to be able to put this to use at my work. I think it's going to be great. So now let's take our site that we've just set up and let's set up a reverse proxy for it. So we're going to close this. We're going to go open up NGinX Proxy Manager. And I'm going to just add a new proxy. And we're going to call this lemmy.routemehome.org. I'm going to hit tab so it becomes a chip, and I'm going to put in the IP address of my server. And we're going to put in the path or the port 1235. We're going to say block common exploits, WebSocket support, and we're going to click on save just to create that. So we're going to scroll down in the list here. We're going to go to Lemmy, and we're going to click on it. Oops. There we go. It comes up right away. Now when we set up our proxy, one of the things that I ran into was I could log into Lemmy, but I couldn't do anything else. It just kept spinning and never really doing anything. And I had to go do a little research, and I found out, okay, they've got some custom locations that you have to set up. And it's really because of the way the WebSocket support works with Lemmy. Since we're proxying through our firewall and then through another machine with NGinX Proxy Manager, or even on the same machine through a different container, we have to set up a custom location. So we've set up the main system. We've got this bit here, and we've got our WebSocket support, we've got our IP address, and we've got our front end port number. We've got our SSL set up. What we need to do now is add this custom location. So here I've added in the custom locations, you can click on add a location. You're just going to type in /API, just like this. And then you're going to come down here and you're going to type in HTTP, or just leave it as HTTP. Type in the port or the IP address again for your machine. And then on the port, you want to put 8536. This is the backend Lemmy port. So you want to make sure that that's set up. Now, if you run into issues after you save that, once you've done that, I'll show you. Now I can log in. So I'm going to go here and type in my username and put in my password. And now I can log in. Now later, if I run into more issues, what they have here is a document that says, hey, here's all the things that you need to set up, and it's kind of far down here in this NGinX configuration they've got. But you see it's got API right here, so that's why I added it. But it's also got the PIC-TRS, it's got feeds, it's got node info, and it's got .well known. So there's a few things that you could set up different locations for to make sure that these are all covered so that if any of them try to come up, it will basically function correctly in the way that you expect. So if you run into little issues, make sure that you've got each one of these things set up in there. And again, the way you do that, so we'll just add PICTRS. You just add another location and scroll down, do /PICTRS, make sure we're spelling that correctly. We can just double check, PICTRS. And again, we're just going to put in the IP address of our machine and then 8536. Now, if you changed the port for some reason from 8536, make sure you're using the port that you changed it to. And again, we're going to hit save. And as soon as I did this a while ago, when I was letting the login run and it was just spinning it, bam, it immediately logged in. So that was really super to know that that's the thing that changed it. And I wanted to make sure that you guys understood what it took to get this to work this way. So once you've got these things set up, you're really kind of ready to go. Now they do have this. If you prefer to just use straight NGinX, they've got an NGinX file here that you can go grab right out of their repo and use that. Now there's some things in here you need to replace, and they've got little curly braces around it. So Lemmy port, Lemmy UI port, and then they've got your domain, things like that you would need to fill in, of course. But once you've done that, you could just use NGinX instead of NGinX Proxy Manager if you want to. But for me, using NGinX Proxy Manager as the norm, I just had to go find what is the location that I'm looking for to get these things to work. So if you do run into those issues, just know that that section is down here and you can add each one of these things so that you can get the information. Same thing for feeds, and then same thing for node info. So I'll do all of those real quick just to make sure that they're all set up. But again, when you're inside of NGinX Proxy Manager, just find your address, click on the three dots, click on Edit, and then jump into the custom locations. You're going to add another location, and we will come down here and we will add /feeds in the same way. And then we'll go back up and we'll click on it one more time, and we'll scroll down to the bottom one here, and we're going to do /node info. Let me make sure I'm getting that right. Node info altogether, yes. And we'll put in the IP address one more time and the port number, and we'll save. This should allow our now set up Lemmy install to function in the way that we expect. So if we say, let's go create a post, and we're going to say, in fact, let's don't create a post. Let's create a community first, and we'll call this self-hosted. And I think this has to be all lowercase, actually, with hyphens only. So we'll call it that. And then self-hosted. And there you can have an icon, you can have banners, you can have all kinds of things, but we'll just say sidebar self-hosted is fine. And then we'll say create. Let's see, it doesn't like the hyphen, I think. Let's try that. There we go. So it created it, and it put it over here in the sidebar for us. And now we can go and create a post under self-hosted. And if you have a URL, you can put it. Otherwise, you can just put a title. And I love self-hosted software that's open source. And then in the body, you can write some kind of text, whatever you want. I'm just going to pretend here. Boom. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just really going on a rant, all those great posts you get. So there we go. Under self-hosted, it's going to be there. You can check if it's not safe for work. You can also check that box, which helps people who are looking at it when they're at work. And there you go. There's the post, and you can vote that thing up or down. So it auto votes for you. So if you click on that, it takes away your vote. If you click it down, of course, it gives it a -1. So it's kind of up to you how you do that. But then people can comment and people can add things. And then you can, of course, edit your own post. And you could put in a URL. So if we put https:// youtube.com/awesome open source, and we hit post. Oh, save. I'm sorry, I'm hitting the wrong button. I'm going crazy. So there we go. So I love self-hosted software, and if I click on that, it'll take me to my YouTube channel, which is the best place in the world. So you should definitely go check out this channel. But there you go. That's Lemmy. We've got it set up. We've got it running with NGinX Proxy Manager. We got it set up very quickly. We've got it running on our system, and it's running great. And I gave you a couple of hints about things that you might run into when you're trying to set it up as well. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along on the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.